Right. Today we are working through chapter 7 of the outstanding user interfaces for Shiny book as part of a book club for the R for Data Science community. If you're watching on YouTube, you're welcome to join us. There are many, many chapters left to work through, and we're kind of halfway through the section of the book that's about styling Shiny apps. And Jack's going to take us through this chapter. Thanks.
Yeah, let me just getting some weird errors in PowerPoint. Let me share up. Just gonna go sharing the whole desktop because I have to flick a little bit between some things at different points. So if I can remember where I just knitted this. Okay, so these are what I had as the learning objectives before I set out to do it all. And essentially it's like, what's fresh? Like, what is it? Why does it exist? Compare fresh with SAS, because obviously you spoke about SAS last week, and they're clearly they're linked. One's built on top of the other. But then we get more into the nuts and bolts of, say, fresh, which is these functions that are very R kind of style and like create theme, and we want to know how to use them. And then these three things, they're sections in the book, but it's like using fresh in practice on some bootstrap stuff, and how do you restyle something that already exists. And then sadly, and I put in the notes, I haven't got onto the combine fresh with thematic for static plots. And that was one of the bits I really wanted to do. I couldn't find the time. And likewise, the Shiny dashboard thing is really small, and it kind of is just like this one. But hopefully we can dip into the actual source material when we get to here, because it seemed like a really interesting part. I'm going to start with just like a question. Do people use Fresh or SAS or Shiny themes?
No, too much of a novice on my end.
Okay, so because I do actually put in a little bit about Shiny themes, because that was my introduction personally. So let's see like what I've got here. So Fresh, yeah, is very high level compared to SAS. And when we do the Fresh or SAS comparison, we'll look a bit more about what I mean of that. But the guys who make Fresh, they're the Dreamers guys. My link to GitHub hasn't rendered well, but yeah, they make these other packages. Now, I don't really use Escape. I think you do, Russ. So you could probably, I don't know, maybe jump in here, but I do use Shiny widgets. Oh, you don't? I thought it's yeah. Anyway, I really use Shiny widgets quite a lot. So when I saw that these guys made this package, for me, it was like, oh, cool. Like they make really good stuff. So that's like good to know. Primarily, it's for editing things that already come with Bootstrap. So you'll take like a predefined theme, and we'll have a look at a few of the themes in one of the sections that we get to here, and you'll be able to like build on top of them very quickly by selecting the theme you want and then changing the requisite parts. Ultimately, like SAS, it's all about, I guess, the principle of do not repeat yourself, in that you're able to change the primary status, for example, everywhere, and not do it every button that you want to change it for or whatnot. Shiny themes. Now, if no one's used Shiny themes, I'd recommend having a look at Shiny themes. When you first start making a Shiny app and you're not using any of the dashboards, like BS for Dash or whatever, Shiny dashboard, or you've just got the Shiny default UI, right? And you've got a bit of help from the dependencies that we've spoken about before. But if you on Shiny themes, you can just select a theme and it transforms your app, in almost like one line of code. Now,
I think Shiny themes was mentioned in Mastering Shiny, and I definitely remember having experimented with it. I very rarely use things like that, but it's rare that I'm actually building an app from scratch, to be honest. But yes, it did seem quite the tool for Fresh seemed very similar to the Shiny themes tool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what I've put here and what I consider to be the differences, and I have used Shiny themes and I've watched stuff on Fresh, but not really used it in the wild. Is that Shiny themes are like there's no real customization there. Um, you you choose your theme, it's very basic, very simple. The effect on it for me, like the payoff in terms of how much you have to learn versus how much you get is huge. Like you go from very basic bricks and mortar kind of UI to something that kind of looks professional just by almost like it feels like cheating almost. Well, Fresh is like that in a way, but it gives you extra functions that allow you to go lower level and customize. But I'd highly recommend, because I actually just never used the dashboard functions, and I've always built stuff from nothing and then added the themes. And I found Shiny themes to be really interesting. But let's say we then get on to Fresh or Sass. Well, the way I'm kind of looking at it in my mind is what Fresh is to Shiny themes is kind of like what Sass is to Fresh. And it's a little bit of like a verbal reasoning thing that you used to get in those horrible tests, right? But it's Fresh is a much higher level version of Sass. In the same way, Shiny themes is a much higher level version of Fresh. Not necessarily explicitly in the same way that Fresh is actually just built on top of Sass, but the way they function. So what do I kind of mean by that, and why is it important? Like Sass lets you do things at a low level, a nuts and bolts level, like you're using variables, using mixins, nested rules, you're doing things that require quite a bit of CSS, potentially CSS knowledge, and then you need to learn some Sass syntax on top. So if you're an R developer and you maybe don't have the time to kind of learn front end from the ground up, and you want something that just helps you style your Shiny app, well, Sass maybe isn't the optimal thing, because when I was watching the stuff and reading about Sass, I think like they're cool, they're very flexible, they don't really feel like R functions. There's lots of nested lists and stuff, and sure, if you do stuff with APIs and you do stuff cross languages, like you're used to JavaScript and stuff and Python dictionaries, then it works in your head, and but it's if you just learned R or you came from R, not normally how we do things. And it feels, or at least I haven't used it enough in the wild to really learn it. My naive feeling is that it feels quite different to R functions. Whereas Fresh gives you kind of a lot of the stuff you can do with Sass, but it feels like an R function. And it's just quicker. I guess inherently there's that trade-off of how much freedom should the user have, and Sass gives the user a lot of freedom and therefore a lot of power, but then a lot of the onus is on the user to know how to use it, to put things together properly. Whereas Fresh, maybe a little bit more opinionated, knows, offers you some suggestions about what you should be interacting with and lets you do it quite quickly. So does anyone, I don't know, I asked about Shiny themes and stuff, but what about Fresh versus Sass? Is there anyone who really has like the low level experience of using these two?
Well, I've used Sass a little bit. I've never used Fresh. And I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of Fresh, but I'm wondering like how much kind of the build chain for Sass you need to employ to use Fresh, because it seemed like there was a bit of a kind of between writing your code and actually running a version of your app, you had to do quite a few build things to get Sass to work within an app. Some of which is taken out of your hands by like Leprechaun or Golem or whatever. But Fresh, I really don't know anything about, and I'm wondering whether you have to do the same kind of steps, but you might not necessarily realize why, given that it's based on R functions and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I do when we get to the using create theme kind of section, there's a couple of arguments in like create theme, like output file, which make the CSS file for you in a directory that you can then link to and stuff. And I think it does abstract away some of those things, but I can just put my hand up straight away and say I just haven't used SAS to know which pain points, right? Like I haven't built anything with it. So it would be quite foolish of me to say that it does solve the problems that I don't kind of fully understand. Okay, what I wanted to do is let's get up this interactive example, and we're going to do some kind of what I'd call like monstrosities on the actual on the thing. So I have to get the code. Or did I? I thought I had this in here. So there's an example, and I'm just going to grab it from the book. I was pretty sure I'd put this in. You get this thing. So grab the example from here. Yeah. So we're in like this app that's put together kind of to demonstrate how Fresh does some nice things for you, right? So we're on like these are all the themes, and these are the kind of themes that you get in Shiny themes and stuff that I guess they're default Bootstrap themes. I have used Cosmo quite a bit because I like the black and white, and I like the general idea. But say if we were using SAS, we'd have a bunch of things like these would have like hyphens and stuff, some of them, and it might be a bit more difficult. He kind of calls them complex variables and replaces the hyphen with an underscore, and then that makes it supposedly, which I did think was a bit funny, but kind of maybe works more like how we used to in R. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got at the moment we've got the nav bar up here, which tells us this is what we would, if we wanted to know what to like change the nav bar in our app, or we come in here and we look at the nav bar and just do some stuff. It doesn't change anything. So if we change our background, like this is here. So this stuff we start to see, right? Like this like link hover. So when you're, when it's active, when it's hovered on, it changes. So there would be a hover background, which we could play with. And I've used with a combination of a friend who knows some CSS and JavaScript in my company, like I've been doing stuff like this, like when this is active, having a nice color below and a different color elsewhere, and color coding the whole thing. And it's been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, like without the formal understanding of how you structure your CSS and all that stuff. Whereas I think this is pretty cool. Like say now we want to what I've got to remember is how you change the primary stuff. So is it these? No, is it status? Where are they gone? Vars to modify. There is a way, and I was playing with this earlier. Okay, yeah. So we can start to do stuff like this. You'd see the change, right? Like you have all your different buttons that you can refer to as classes in Shiny, functions for the action button and stuff, and their primaries and whatnot. And you could just start to see, well, okay, brand success, and just change this stuff. Brand info is, I don't even know what that one is. Oh, sorry, yeah, that. Yeah, so this is like the interactive thing, right? It's like you're going to use Fresh. You don't know all the variables that you need. So you could come into something like this and you can unpack them all. These tabs are going to be these things. So if we go like border color, they should get a border around the whole thing. And click on this one, you can change like the active color. And these are things we're probably all like familiar with, right? Like the hover and the active and all that stuff, but they're an extra layer of difficulty in CSS, like just finding which CSS to change at which point in order to affect these kind of things. Whereas Fresh helps you get them all and tells you if you use my function, like if you use my create theme function and a couple of the other functions that I've got, well, in there are arguments. Those arguments correspond to this. You can click and change. I guess it's like changing stuff in the developer tools, right? And seeing what it does on the page.
Yeah, it does seem difficult because, like, I mean, if the problem I have with styling within the dev tools is that you can readily find the CSS you need to change for a very specific button or element on the page. But if you're trying to change, trying to find the right change to make that will apply to that button and all equivalent buttons, and probably to, you know, some additional change in the context where it's placed as well. It's very hard to find that kind of stuff in CSS for me. It's like, yeah.
You get into like,
but I like this idea because it makes it more obvious what the important variables actually are that you should be looking into changing.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like I was playing around with it earlier for like a little while, and you can prototype stuff so fast, like different colors. And I should have linked to this in the deck, but it's something I watched a little while ago. It may even have been this year's Shiny Conf or last year's. It was Joe Cheng talking about this, about like, why has it always been so hard in Shiny to take care of things like that, right? Like my primary and my success and all that stuff. Like, why was it so tough? Why did I have to do it every time in a separate style sheet? From memory, I think Sass and Fresh, or was it, maybe it was Sass that he was presenting, but seems relevant for Fresh as well. But that's a good talk. I'll try to pop that as a to-do. I can link to that one because it was really good. I don't know if there's a couple of different themes just for like completeness, right? You got like different ones. I suppose you'd want to refresh this app to see what the actual theme is when you change. But you get a nice, you don't have that much time to invest. Well, this is a really cool kind of workaround for stuff. Is there anything anyone else wants me to double click on or like look at in here, or do you think we kind of get, I think this is empty. Yeah, these were, I guess they don't work. Let me just check the chat. Yeah, cool. So I'll come back out. Should probably close this in my console in case you need anything else. And I actually don't want this, do I? I want this. Okay, so what Fresh does is it gives us some functions, and like kind of the primary function, if you like, is this function that helps you make your own Bootstrap based theme. And I put here in kind of the slide copy some of the arguments, but like, I think it's probably worth going over them. In ellipsis, you put in the CSS variables, and depending on what you're doing, and I just don't know enough about admin LT to comment and stuff, but you put in the like, I guess, framework that you're using, and you refer to the variables according to your framework. And when we get a little bit deeper, we will see there's kind of a bit of help with some other functions. You don't necessarily have to know them all in advance. But this output file, if that equals null, well, you need to go and put the file into the right place to read the CSS later. But if you put it as true, or is it that you put it as a string? Let's actually just look. So Fresh. Create theme. Output file specifies path. Okay, yeah, specifies path to output the file and path CSS. Yeah, and if you don't do it, well, it returns the string of all the CSS, and you'd put that into a file and put it into the correct place. This one, include assets. So you only do this if this is null. So there's like a dependency among the arguments. And what that will do is transfer assets or like output assets for you, which is stuff like font that goes into the various themes you're using. Again, I think there's more information about this that include assets in the documentation or the book. But you can see like here, right, when you're making it, there's a little sneak peek of what it does look like. But that's on the next slide of here. I'm intrigued because I want to build something with this and see if it makes my life a lot easier. But I think personally, I get the idea and I get why it was necessary. And I hope it saves me from having to invest too much time into SAS. Just because I just can't really justify that much time learning SAS, right, when you've got something like this. But okay, so this example, it's going to be best if we actually run the code, I think. So this is making we got our library. Yep. Great. So this is taken straight from the book, but I think it's quite instructive. But this is like making a theme. So we're building on the default theme of Bootstrap, and then we're changing some of the colors, right? And we're then sending our output file to here, and R is creating a temp directory for us to store this. And then when we make the app, we would have this inside it. So we'd run this, and this is creating the temp directory for us, which we would refer to in here, because at the end of this, you see here is custom theme CSS, which is what we called our style sheet. And then we would do this. But I must have done this in my console. There is another example, if I remember correctly, in the book. Yeah, was that this one? No, it's not this one. Okay, we'll stick to my slide for now. But I'm pretty sure there was an example which shows you how these things looked, or I made it and then didn't save. But I'm pretty sure there is one. Okay, so that's like how you do it in principle, right? Is you'd create your own theme from scratch, you change the things you want to change, and you got some helper functions. But what does that mean for doing it on something like BS for Dash, which comes with a lot of different things? These don't print very nicely. So BS for Dash status, nice function. I think would be helpful to look at it in R, because you've got something like this from RStudio, which is like BS for Dash status, and then you see all of these arguments, and you could, if you didn't have this up here, you can use this to like remind you what you need to fill in. And it's really quite nice that now they have this thing in RStudio that tells you what the default color code was, and the actual little thing here, which didn't used to be the case. Okay, I'll pop that back. And then you've got, say, so when you're changing these things, right, you're changing those elements that we saw in the Bootstrap, like the primary, secondary, warning, etc. And then here there's a whole load of potential defaults here. So again, I think it's helpful if you don't know them to just lean on RStudio's like really helpful thing, and those defaults are down there. So before we jump on, let me see if I had any important notes. Okay, and then yeah, so maybe this was the example that I thought was before. Okay, so this, yeah, we're actually gonna create our theme, and then we're gonna have a look at what it does. So this is now a theme, an example where create theme has been used to restyle some of the stuff in a dashboard. Which, yeah, I like it. I haven't really used these, but like, I wish I'd known just about these boxes and stuff that would have made some of the apps I developed just like a million times easier. It kind of reminds me of this meme, the what meme. It's like, did you know about that part of BS for Dash that helps you get things, right? It's like, this is how I felt when I just read about this.
One thing I find vaguely jarring about this is not the meme, when you specify the colors, it was like you were redefining lime green to be something that's definitely not lime green, and it seemed strange to me that you were that the workflow is to define a named color as a particular hex code, rather than like, you know, the principal box as a particular color or something like that.
Well, like, so in we got two different functions. Maybe I went a little bit too fast over. Oh, why can't I go back? We got these ones though, right? Like, we got the BS for dash status. So yeah, there's
and you put color codes in there rather than the names that it would then extract from BS for colors.
I think I can't say for certain, right? But I think R will let you put, like, when you plot something, would let you put a hex code, or would let you put like midnight blue. I gather I wouldn't want to go and try and live code it, because I'm worried that I won't change it right. But I'm pretty sure that you can. It will read it as R would read colors, either hex codes or descriptions. So if you were looking to change the status elements, then yeah, you'd go for BS for dash status. I, again, can't say with certainty, but what I think this is for is like, I don't know if you guys get this. I work in a company that we have like a design side, and they'll sometimes be quite opinionated on the colors we can put in presentations. And it's like you're changing two values in the RGB or the hex code. But it makes all the difference, you know, supposedly when you have that I, and it would be changing blue. I would guess that you change it to a different type of blue, but maybe the idea is, yeah, that you can, because it's quite, I think it looks nicer in R, because I at least get these are on different lines. It tells you like, this is the one for like info status, this is the one for primary status. And you're covering a lot of the spectrum, I think. And say when we do different clients, like clients will have different guidelines, their brand guidelines, and it'll be like, our blue is this. So then if you change just that blue into like their hex code, it should, I guess, wherever there is blue, wherever you want there to be blue, would change it all. But I am making some pretty strong assumptions based on my lack of like experience with these things. So yeah, you can see like here, right, we're changing, they're kind of, well, this lime, yeah, I guess there's lime's more green to me. This looks more yellow, and maroon, that's definitely more brown. I did like this. So this is the part, the author's note. Complex variable names like gray x light become gray underscore x underscore light, as if that makes them significantly more or less, like more simple, less complex. I think the super obvious.
It just makes them legal names in R. I don't think it's anything particularly complex, you know. It just means that R won't complain.
Yeah, you don't need to wrap them in. I guess that's all he means. But I do think it was quite funny. Or to a non-programmer who's not used to snake cases, I feel like it would feel quite funny. My super obvious tip is just like for us who were maybe not used to these functions, or we don't know what we don't know. Although I don't know what I don't know a lot of the time. It's like using RStudio's autofill is just like a godsend on so many things. And that's one of the, from what I can gather, that's one of the big virtues of it being these kind of functions, where you're not lots of nested lists and dealing with that kind of stuff. It's like, here's what you could change, choose what you want to change. And yeah, the author gives some advantages. So over the SAS approach, we don't have to specify these locations, because Fresh, when we put the output file, kind of does that for us. And yeah, we don't have to go looking for all the color names, because this one has a bunch of colors kind of in it for us. Yeah, let's I think it helps to execute the code here actually. So there are other functions in Fresh. So like I said, I didn't touch on them all because I just personally didn't have time there. There's quite a lot. But there are different things you can do. So you add, say, just this one, and then, oh look, this is like your ocean theme. And then I think, oh, why is that not? Okay, this print it. Yeah, okay, so you could print the whole thing, right? Why would you want to? Because this is a lot of CSS that's hard for us to look at, but I guess you get, the amount of work it's doing for you, it's huge. Like we all know from the amount of things that are imported into Shiny that there's a lot going on behind scenes, but you could get all of the stuff and you could put it in to something. But when you do create the theme, you could also do the output file thing. And I don't have the file system set up because this isn't a Shiny package, but that would put it into the right place for you. And then you'd follow, because I guess there were clarifications in the CSS or the SAS section, right? Where I think Lucio said, like, the authors of Shiny had said, like, basically don't worry about the dependencies too much. If you're just making custom CSS and stuff, just use the tags link to the style sheet. Like we kind of all thought a little while back. Okay, so the book, and we can now kind of dip into the book. The book does kind of continue along in this vein, and these are the parts I just wasn't able to get through. But like a lot of it is it's the same thing. It's like, how do you do the dash bar, how do you do the nav bars and stuff, or use some of their functions, and there's a function for the bars. How do you do the text color? Well, it's kind of the same thing. You add all your different things together when you create the theme, and remembering that these are ellipsis in create theme, you're passing in CSS elements into the create theme function. This one, I think, was quite interesting. So this is really important to think about always, I guess, when you're developing UIs and you're customizing things, is if you have too light on light colors and there's not enough contrast, like, can someone who's using the app, can they easily see or read like what you want them to? And I gathered this was like an automated way, going from a bootstrap, like it says here, this bootstrap 4 function, which does all this stuff. This is like an automated way of it tuning that stuff for you. So where did we have the fresh part? BS for dash YIQ. Yeah, you put this, you put some things, and it will take care of that for you in a nice 4R function. So let's have a look at the documentation. Yeah, we make sure that we set the threshold, and this is like relatable to RGB values. I think it's RGB values that are 0 to 255, right? For darkness and lightness, and yeah, whenever the stuff is too dark, well, we want this color, and then whenever it's too light, we want this kind of color. I think that's pretty useful on like, especially tables that you're doing with something like GT or other tabling things, right? Where you have those gradient palette fills based on values. GT will nicely like do this for you, essentially. It will say like, when that value is too dark, well, I'll just change to light. And it's working on similar kind of things. Yeah, sorry, I did put like, I just ran out of time and could we discuss stuff? But yeah, it is interesting. I found like, okay, it was a lot of the same by this point in time. It's like, it will help for me personally to go over all of the examples, go through them 2-3 times and see what they look like. Could have a look, get this code out for this example. See, oops, I didn't uncomment this stuff, did I? Should that not? Yeah, it's because I was previously in a thing. So like, it says like, you can see me. I suppose it's just, yeah, it's going back to the same kind of thing as the first example, right? Where you can do this interactive exploration of things. Yeah, I think it will be very useful. I wish I was a person who knew more CSS and had more experience, so I could really bring out the value in it compared to doing it all manually. But it's all in here. Now the interesting part, like we said, is this matic, which is, yeah, so one of the limitations, say, as a fresh, is that it does not apply natively to the static plots. So that's like if you're using ggplots and stuff in your Shiny, they're going to output a PNG unless you use something like ggplotly. Well, you can use some of the fresh function. Oh, sorry, you get these 2 packages, you use fresh and then use the Fnatic package, and you combine those together, and then you can restyle all your plots. But maybe we take a look at this as well.
It's quite neat thematic. I do like the idea of kind of matching an app to well, matching your plots, your charts to the theme of an app. Similarly for like, for like Quarto presentations and stuff as well. It's quite a nice. It just makes everything look nice. But yeah,
it feels a lot more professional when
yeah,
you see that kind of stuff, right? So this is not the example that I thought it would be. I thought this was going to be a plotting one. Is that my bad for getting the wrong one? Why is this? Oh, this is BS-Ocean theme. Wow, seems like I'm not getting the right thing, the right example. Does anyone know off the top of their head or is able to find like this example here so that we can?
Looks like it might be in the second tab from the picture.
Second tab, what, like?
Within the app you have open, I think it's in the tab labeled tab
okay.
2.
Oh yeah, okay, nice. So what would we do? We would change some stuff in here, essentially, or how would we change the colors? What are all these? Yeah, no, Hannah, go ahead. Yeah, so how would we, I mean, is it just that it's showing that it is something? Because this looks like it's not, the background maybe doesn't fit. Like, would you not, one of the things you want in like the interactive plots and stuff is like that the backgrounds kind of fit. It's this one. Potentially this one, right? And then do the little Mac trip. Okay. The plot still seems very similar. Should we actually be changing this stuff? Yeah, something I personally really want to play with and put in the time on it. But when you see you get down here, it says, well, you can also do this with Shiny Dashboard and the codes here. Yeah, I like the look of Fresh. I'd like not to repeat myself too much. I really want to build something with it and compare that to how I was doing it before, which is a bunch of, like you said, Russ, looking in the dev tools, finding that very specific button that you want to change, and then struggling to find all the other things that you need to change to make it work in your app. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop sharing stuff because that's all I've got.
I'm eager to see how BSlib improves on or does something different than Fresh. I wasn't at all familiar with Fresh until today, so this is something I'd like to explore. Like you, Jack, I don't particularly want, at least now, to go down the very deep rabbit hole of learning Sass.
Yeah, it seems like that's for people who are already developers, right? Like web developers, and Fresh is maybe for us who we'd love to be web developers, but we're not, and we don't maybe have the time. Yeah, I think it'd be cool. Like it says in the chapter about Fresh, like later tools, like the next sections of BSlib, a similar high level ways of operating. So I guess it will be interesting to see, like, well, what's the best one for us? And then on the other side, I guess not everyone's use case is the same. Like I gather there's quite a range of front end experience in the whole group. I think people like Lucio and Federica have maybe quite a bit of experience with that kind of stuff. And I think you too, Russ. So yeah, it'd be interesting to get a nice balanced perspective of what's the best route for people like us to go down.
I'm trying to find the source code for these examples in the book's repository, because I'm quite keen to see what it actually looks like inside the app, or whether it's what is it now?
Yeah, there was a link in this, so I went looking for that too, and there's a link in this. It's like to the GitHub, the code for the examples, but you click that link in the book, and it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay, right. Oh, maybe it's in Fresh. BS4 dash.
Yeah, so there's this thing
Dashboard plus Cyberpunk.
Preview the code, right? So it says this, for that example. Oh wait, you click. There's a hyperlink, is there on it, and it says like this RDRR IO page can't be found. But let's say maybe we can input this into the console. No, couldn't get the source code. So where's the?
Maybe silly question that might be a little orthogonal to this is Shiny Editor. Is it meant just for kind of like composing the layout, or does it also dabble in this of helping with theming?
Shiny Editor, is that the like do it all interactively thing?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was something that I'll drop it in the link in chat. Posit kind of demoed. I believe it's an alpha product right now at the last RStudio Conf, and I wasn't able to attend the session, but I don't know if it's just to do with the UI kind of exclusive of theming, or if it also is meant to like offer the end user abilities to kind of reach down into theming as well.
Yeah, I saw a talk a while back about what I think led to this package, but I can't remember too much about it, sadly. Just like fishing through the docs now.
On Quick Pass, it might actually just be dealing with the UI. I don't see any theme pieces as yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. It would be cool though. If it could, I wonder if that's just an extra layer of difficult or like complex to make to cover all of the cases.
Yeah, I've not used the UI editor, but someone from work was telling us about it, like for like wireframing apps, and took us through an example of how to use it after the RStudio conference last year. Yeah, I mean it looks quite neat. So Fresh. So where do we go with Fresh? The trouble is, I mean, I think it would be dangerous for me to learn a lot of these tools because, like, my sense of like color matching and stuff like that is not not the greatest, you know. And I do wonder, like, I thought that the was it Yik you were saying YIQ thing seemed very neat because you know it that whole kind of accessibility sphere is kind of it isn't somewhere where my expertise lies, and having something that would do a few quick checks on that kind of thing would be quite useful.
Yeah, an
Before
automatic, right, as
creating.
well.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a cool tool that one of my friends uses. It's you can like hover over bits of your screen or your app or whatever, and you can put different types of color blindness. It's like, what does this look like for all of these? And you go over the area of the screen, it shows you, and you can see like, oh, I actually can't see anything. So helps you like use different palettes and stuff.
I love this stuff though, but like, you know, you worry about this stuff, and then like I go downstairs and watch the telly, and like, you know, the Disney Plus icons are like smaller than I can read from the other side of the room and things. And like, I mean, like, I know, like color blindness. I understand, but like short-sightedness is probably a little bit more common, so maybe make it a bit bigger first.
Yeah, it's like it's a whole area of study, right? That it's like it's becoming a lot more in the thoughts of like in people's thoughts, which is really good. But when you're a naive developer and then you're tripping over like how to just arrange the like the hierarchy of the page, and then the text, and then you need to worry about how all the colors and the contrast and everything, like it's just like too much. So yeah, like you said, it's really nice to have a tool that does some of that automatically. Would be great to have an AI assistant that reads it and goes like, your text here is too small, like this bit here is bad, or these colors don't go together. But
doesn't Lighthouse do something along them lines? Oh, I don't think I've got it installed anymore. I used to have Google Lighthouse installed on my browser, and I think it does give a report on things like that.
That'd be cool. Like you just run your app through it and it just says like,
Yeah. I mean,
these
for
tabs.
me, it would probably just say everything's bad, you know. That's the problem. It's like when you add a new tool to your chain. When I first started using linting and stuff, it was just like everything you've written in your whole life.
Like, have you considered a different career? It's almost like
yeah.
Yeah, I get that with slide design. I spend a long time sometimes designing slides, and I show them to people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll just get one of the analysts or a designer to revisit this, and we'll fix it." And I'm like, they're like smiling about this amazing slide I've created.
Yeah. Anyway, there's definitely things that would check a running app for things like on accessibility axes, but not necessarily give you the route to fix those issues.
You have some problems, like you need
Yeah.
to introspect now and figure out what they are.
Yeah. Anyway, brilliant. Thanks for taking us through the chapter today. I think next week, I think it might be Olafemi on is it BS Lib? I think it's BS Lib next week. Yeah. On theming with Bootstrap. So how that precisely differs, because what we've done today is effectively theming with Bootstrap as well. Presumably it's use of more recent versions of Bootstrap as well. So yeah, so that should be good. Yeah, thanks for taking us through this week. I think there might be a space in 2 weeks' time, or
There is one, isn't there? Coming up.
JavaScript for Shiny. Oh no, that will probably have been snapped up, I would have thought.
Yeah. Well, we've got a
Anyway,
couple.
I'll check and I'll post in the Slack channel. Brilliant. So it looks like there's only one more week of the styling of Shiny stuff. I'm still not feeling like I don't feel like an expert with the CSS side of Shiny. But yeah, seeing all these different packages that can do these things is really neat, and particularly things like Fresh that make it look like there's a simple set of steps that you can do to generate the CSS you need to generate, be it a client specific layout or theme or anyway. Brilliant. Thanks, Jack.
Cheers. What I'd add, what I hope is that I just have in my memory, right, that this stuff all exists, and then when I come to build something, I become an expert by building. It's what I'm kind of hoping.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. Thanks everyone for coming along. I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Have a good one.
Next week.